Good evening, dear listeners, and welcome to this tranquil journey through time. As the sun sets and the world softens into a hush, we invite you to find a comfortable position, perhaps nestled under a cozy blanket or lying back on your favorite pillow. This space is dedicated to your relaxation, a sanctuary where the weight of the day can gently dissolve away. Tonight, we will delve into a topic that may seem, at first glance, to be as dry as parchment: the history of the Roman Senate session attendance log maintenance and compliance audits. Yes, you heard that right. While many tales of history are filled with grand battles and heroic conquests, this narrative unfolds within the quieter corridors of administrative diligence and procedural governance. As we explore this fascinating yet understated aspect of Roman governance, we will begin by painting a serene picture of the Roman Senate itself. Imagine the cool marble columns and the flickering torchlight casting soft shadows on the faces of the esteemed senators as they gather to deliberate the affairs of the state. These men, guardians of the Republic, are not only tasked with the weighty decisions of war and peace, but also with the meticulous records that ensure their proceedings are transparent and accountable. Next, we will drift into the realm of the attendance logs, those humble documents that kept track of who was present in these significant gatherings. The simplicity of a log belies its importance, for it was a tool of compliance, a means to uphold the integrity of the Senate. We will explore how these logs were maintained, how senators would sign their names, ensuring that their voices were heard and their responsibilities acknowledged. As we settle deeper into this narrative, we will touch upon the process of compliance audits, a practice that might seem tedious but was essential for the health of the Republic. Picture the diligent clerks, their quills scratching against parchment, their focus unwavering as they sift through records to ensure that every detail is correct and accounted for. This attention to detail, while perhaps not the stuff of legends, was a vital thread in the fabric of Roman governance. Throughout our journey, we will weave in moments of reflection, giving you space to breathe deeply and release any tension you may be holding. The rhythm of this narrative is gentle, allowing your mind to wander and your body to relax further with each passing minute. So, as we prepare to embark on this soothing exploration of the Roman Senate's bureaucratic intricacies, I encourage you to let go of the day's stresses. Allow the soft cadence of my voice to wash over you like a gentle wave, lulling you into a state of peace and tranquility. In a moment, we will begin our deep dive into this fascinating yet serene aspect of history. Together, we will uncover the layers of responsibility and care that characterize the Senate's approach to record-keeping and compliance, reminding us that sometimes, the most mundane elements of governance can hold profound significance. So, let us embark on this calming journey through time, as we delve into the dull history of Roman Senate session attendance log maintenance and compliance audits. With each word, may you find yourself drifting further into relaxation, ready to embrace the soothing embrace of slumber. And now, let us begin. The history of the maintenance and compliance audits of Roman Senate session attendance logs can be traced back to the early days of the Roman Republic, specifically around the 5th century BCE. The Senate, as an institution, began to take shape following the expulsion of the last king of Rome, Tarquin the Proud, in 509 BCE. This development marked the transition from monarchy to a republican form of governance, necessitating a structured approach to legislative attendance and participation. The initial records of Senate attendance were rudimentary at best. Early in the Republic, the Senate convened in various locations, often in the Curia Hostilia, a structure located in the Roman Forum. This building was characterized by its simplicity, with a rectangular plan and wooden beams supporting a thatched roof. The architectural simplicity of the Curia Hostilia belied the complexity of the political discussions that took place within its confines. The earliest recorded attendance logs, while scarce, can be dated to approximately 450 BCE, coinciding with the establishment of the 12 Tables, which codified certain legal principles and set the foundation for Roman law. These logs were maintained by the clerks of the Senate, known as the scribi. Their primary responsibility was to record the names of the senators present during each session meticulously. The scribes utilized wax tablets and styluses to inscribe attendance, a method that would persist for centuries. As the Roman Senate evolved, so did the administrative procedures surrounding attendance logging. By the late 3rd century BCE, under the influence of figures such as Quintus Fabius Maximus and Gaius Sempronius Gracchus, the Senate formalized its procedures concerning attendance. The Curia Cornelia was constructed, a new Senate house designed by the renowned architect Lucius Cornelius Sulla, showcasing a more permanent structure with marble columns and a tiled roof. This architectural advancement reflected the growing importance of the Senate and its functions within the Republic. The daily routine of Senate sessions, which typically occurred twice a month, was characterized by a strict adherence to protocol. Senators would gather early in the morning, often before the sun had fully risen. The presiding consul of the day was tasked with initiating the session, a role that rotated between the two elected consuls. Following the opening remarks, the scribe would call the roll, a process that involved orally announcing each senator's name to ensure the accuracy of attendance. In the event that a senator was absent, the reasons for such absences were often recorded. The Senate took attendance seriously, as it not only reflected the commitment of its members but also impacted the quorum necessary for the passage of legislation. Notably, the absence of senators could lead to delays in proceedings, thus prompting the Senate to establish compliance audits of attendance logs. The first documented compliance audit occurred in 227 BCE, during the tenure of Cato the Elder, who was an outspoken advocate for moral rigor within the Senate. Cato, known for his austere lifestyle, instituted a review of the attendance logs to ensure that senators fulfilled their obligations. The audit process involved a detailed examination of the logbooks maintained by the scribe, cross-referencing them with the reasons for absences provided by senators. This meticulous review process set a precedent for future audits. By the 1st century BCE, the political landscape of the Roman Republic became increasingly tumultuous. The Senate's attendance logs became critical in documenting the participation of senators during periods of civil unrest, particularly during the conflicts between the Populars and Optimates factions. During this time, prominent figures such as Julius Caesar and Pompey the Great frequently addressed attendance issues in their political rhetoric, emphasizing the importance of senator engagement. The construction of the Curia Julia in 44 BCE, commissioned by Julius Caesar, marked another significant shift in the architectural and administrative handling of Senate sessions. The Curia Julia was designed with greater grandeur, featuring a larger meeting space and enhanced facilities for the scribes to maintain attendance logs. The building was adorned with intricate mosaics and sculptures, which served not only to inspire but also to intimidate attendees. With the establishment of the Roman Empire under Augustus in 27 BCE, the Senate's role and the associated attendance log maintenance assumed new dimensions. Augustus instituted a more stringent compliance audit system, with regular reviews conducted by a newly appointed official known as the censor. The censor was responsible for overseeing the moral conduct of senators, which included their attendance. This role was a continuation of earlier practices but with an expanded remit, ensuring that senators not only attended sessions but also adhered to the ethical standards expected of them. The censor's audits involved a systematic review of attendance records, where discrepancies were identified and addressed. Senators who were found to be habitually absent faced social stigma and potential penalties, which could include loss of privileges or status within the Senate. This period saw a rise in the formality of attendance logging, with more sophisticated techniques being employed to ensure compliance. The introduction of bronze tablets etched with attendance information became commonplace, facilitating a more durable record-keeping system. The Senate continued to refine its attendance procedures throughout the imperial period. By the 2nd century CE, under the reign of Emperor Hadrian, the Senate had established a dedicated office for attendance management. This office, managed by the Magister Senatus, was responsible for the ongoing maintenance of attendance logs and compliance audits. The Magister Senatus worked closely with the scribes, ensuring that records were not only accurate but also reflective of the senators' engagement in legislative affairs. The architectural evolution of the Senate buildings during this time also mirrored the increasing bureaucratization of session attendance. The Curia was expanded and remodeled multiple times, with the Curia of Pompey and later the Curia of Diocletian serving as prominent examples of the grandeur that reflected the Senate's elevated status. The interiors were fitted with elaborate frescoes depicting historical events and notable senators, serving both as inspiration and a reminder of the responsibilities associated with membership in the Senate. Throughout the 3rd and 4th centuries CE, attendance log maintenance continued to evolve, with the introduction of more advanced administrative practices. The Senate began to employ a system of checks and balances, where attendance logs were audited not only by the censor but also by a council of senior senators. This council was tasked with enforcing compliance and ensuring that all members contributed to the legislative process. The increasing complexity of the Roman political landscape during this period required meticulous record-keeping. Attendance logs became critical for understanding the dynamics of power and influence within the Senate. The records provided insights into voting patterns, alliances, and the overall health of the Republic's governance. The significance of attendance logs reached its zenith during the tumultuous years leading up to the fall of the Western Roman Empire. The final culmination of attendance log maintenance and compliance audits occurred during the reign of Emperor Honorius, around the early 5th century CE. The Senate, facing pressures from outside invasions and internal strife, found itself struggling to maintain its relevance. The attendance logs, once a symbol of civic duty and engagement, became increasingly difficult to enforce as the empire crumbled. The last recorded attendance logs from this period reflect a marked decline in participation, highlighting the disintegration of the senatorial authority that had once governed Rome. In conclusion, the history of Roman Senate session attendance log maintenance and compliance audits is a testament to the evolving nature of governance in one of history's most influential civilizations. From the rudimentary beginnings in the Curia Hostilia to the sophisticated administrative procedures of the late Empire, the Senate's approach to attendance reflects the political, social, and architectural shifts that occurred over centuries. This detailed account serves to underscore the importance of record-keeping and compliance in maintaining the integrity of legislative institutions, illustrating that even the most mundane aspects of governance can offer profound insights into the workings of power and authority. The dull history of Roman Senate session attendance log maintenance and compliance audits continues with an examination of the construction methods and materials utilized in the assembly and preservation of the Senate attendance logs, critical to the overall integrity of Roman legislative practices. ### Construction methods and materials. In the early years of the Roman Republic, dating back to 509 BCE, the Senate's attendance logs were primarily inscribed on wax tablets. Wax tablets, approximately 15 centimeters by 25 centimeters in size, were made from a rectangular wooden frame filled with a thin layer of beeswax. The Romans employed a stylus, typically made of metal, bone, or wood, to etch names and records into the wax surface. This method allowed for easy erasure by smoothing the wax with the flat end of the stylus, enabling multiple uses of the tablet. By the 1st century BCE, the use of papyrus became prevalent as a more durable alternative. The Senate began to transition to papyrus scrolls, which were produced from the papyrus plant, Cyperus papyrus, native to the Nile Delta. Each scroll, measuring approximately 30 centimeters in width and up to several meters in length, facilitated the recording of more extensive session summaries and attendance records. The scrolls were often treated with a thin layer of gesso, a mixture of chalk and glue, to create a smoother writing surface. The introduction of parchment, animal skin treated for writing purposes, occurred around the 2nd century CE. Parchment was more resilient than papyrus and allowed for the production of codices, which combined multiple sheets of parchment into a single volume. This transition marked a significant shift in record-keeping practices within the Senate, as codices provided easier access to historical attendance logs. The average thickness of parchment used was approximately 0.3 millimeters, with each sheet measuring about 20 centimeters by 30 centimeters. ### Maintenance procedures. The maintenance of attendance logs required meticulous care, ensuring their preservation for future reference. For wax tablets, a standard procedure involved regular cleaning to maintain the integrity of the wax surface. This process, conducted biannually, involved the use of a soft cloth to remove dust and debris. The logs were stored in a climate-controlled environment, specifically, a shaded area away from direct sunlight, as exposure could lead to melting or warping of the wax. For papyrus scrolls, the preservation protocol mandated storage in protective wooden boxes lined with linen to prevent moisture damage. The scrolls were regularly checked for signs of deterioration, such as brittleness or discoloration. It was standard practice for clerks to employ a mixture of olive oil and resin to treat the scrolls, thereby enhancing their longevity. A thorough inspection and treatment of the papyrus records were conducted quarterly, ensuring that the scrolls remained legible and intact. With the advent of parchment codices, maintenance procedures evolved further. Codices were kept in wooden cabinets that featured humidity control mechanisms, as parchment was susceptible to both moisture and dryness. Archival staff conducted monthly checks, examining each codex for signs of mold or insect infestation. In instances of damage, repairs were carried out using a special adhesive made from a mixture of flour and water, which was applied with precision to prevent further degradation. #financial records and costs. The financial implications of maintaining attendance logs were significant, requiring careful budgeting and allocation of resources. The costs associated with the construction of attendance logs varied depending on the materials used. In 50 BCE, the price of a wax tablet was approximately 2 denarii, whereas a sheet of papyrus could cost up to 10 denarii, depending on the quality and source. Parchment sheets, being more labor-intensive to produce, typically ranged from 15 to 20 denarii each. In the year 30 CE, the Senate allocated a budget of 1,000 denarii specifically for the procurement of writing materials. This budget accounted for the purchase of 50 wax tablets, 30 papyrus scrolls, and 20 sheets of parchment. The allocation was documented in the Senate's financial records, which were meticulously maintained by the quaestors. These records detailed every expenditure related to the materials and were submitted for review during annual compliance audits. Furthermore, clerical personnel responsible for the upkeep of attendance logs were compensated based on their duties. The standard salary for a junior scribe in 40 CE was approximately 300 denarii annually, while senior clerks earned upwards of 600 denarii. This financial structure underscored the importance of maintaining accurate attendance records, as skilled personnel were essential to uphold the integrity of the documentation process. #personnel and job descriptions. The management of Senate attendance logs required a diverse team of personnel, each with specific job descriptions tailored to the maintenance and oversight of legislative documentation. The primary roles involved in this process included: 1. Senior clerk. The senior clerk was responsible for overseeing the entire attendance log maintenance operation. This position required at least 5 years of experience in clerical work, alongside a comprehensive understanding of Roman legislative procedures. The senior clerk coordinated the activities of junior scribes, ensured compliance with record-keeping protocols, and reported directly to the Senate's presiding officer regarding any discrepancies found in the attendance logs. 2. Junior scribe. Junior scribes were tasked with the day-to-day recording of attendance during Senate sessions. Their duties included inscribing names and session details on wax tablets or papyrus scrolls as dictated by the senior clerk. Junior scribes were expected to possess a strong command of Latin and Greek, as well as proficiency in calligraphy. Training for junior scribes typically lasted 2 years, during which they learned the intricacies of legislative documentation. 3. Archivist. The archivist played a crucial role in the preservation and organization of historical attendance logs. This position required expertise in archival science and materials preservation techniques. The archivist was responsible for maintaining the storage conditions of all attendance logs, conducting regular inspections, and implementing restoration techniques when necessary. The archivist also developed a classification system for easy retrieval of historical records. 4. Compliance auditor. Compliance auditors were appointed to conduct regular reviews of attendance log maintenance practices. Their role involved assessing adherence to established protocols and identifying areas for improvement. Auditors were typically appointed on an annual basis and required a background in law or public administration. Their findings were documented in a comprehensive report presented to the Senate, highlighting any compliance issues or recommendations for enhancing record-keeping efficiency. #Technical specifications. The technical specifications governing the maintenance of Senate attendance logs were detailed in a series of official documents known as the Codex Legum. This codex outlined the standard operating procedures for the construction, maintenance, and auditing of attendance records. Key specifications included material standards. The Codex Legum stipulated that wax tablets must be constructed from high-quality cedar wood frames with a minimum thickness of 1.5 centimeters. The wax layer was required to be no less than 5 millimeters thick to ensure durability. Recording instruments. The stylus used for inscribing records was mandated to be 15 centimeters in length, with a pointed end for etching and a flat end for smoothing wax surfaces. The use of metal styluses was encouraged for longevity, while wooden styluses were permitted for junior scribes during training. Storage conditions. Attendance logs, regardless of material, were to be stored in environments maintained at a temperature of 20 to 22 degrees Celsius and a humidity level of 40 to 50%. This specification aimed to prevent warping, fading, or deterioration of the records. Inspection protocols. The Codex Legum required that all attendance logs undergo a thorough inspection every 6 months. This inspection included checks for legibility, structural integrity, and any signs of environmental damage. The findings of these inspections were to be recorded in a designated compliance log, which itself was maintained according to the same rigorous standards. In summary, the maintenance of the Roman Senate session attendance log was a multifaceted endeavor, encompassing construction methods, maintenance procedures, financial oversight, personnel management, and adherence to technical specifications. While seemingly mundane, the diligent attention to these details ensured the preservation of legislative integrity and the accurate recording of power dynamics within the Roman Republic. The historical trajectory of these practices provides a unique lens through which to examine the often overlooked aspects of governance and institutional compliance. The construction methods and materials used in the establishment of the Roman Senate session attendance log system were indicative of the broader architectural and engineering practices prevalent during the late Republic and into the early Empire. The logs, often housed in wooden chests or tablets made from a mixture of cedar and oak, were designed to withstand the test of time, given their critical importance in maintaining an accurate record of attendance and compliance. The cedar wood, known for its aromatic properties and resistance to decay, was frequently utilized due to its availability in the Mediterranean region. The construction of these storage units typically involved skilled artisans known as carpenters, who adhered to specific dimensions to ensure uniformity across the Senate's administrative apparatus. For instance, a standard log chest measured approximately 1.2 meters in length, 0.6 meters in width, and 0.8 meters in height, allowing for an adequate volume to store multiple bound scrolls. The chests were often reinforced with iron fittings, which became available around the 2nd century BCE, to enhance security and durability. The use of these materials and techniques reflected not only the practical needs of storage but also the aesthetic values of Roman society, where functionality was often combined with a degree of artistry. Maintenance procedures for these attendance logs were regimented and required the involvement of designated clerks, known as scribi. These clerks were tasked with ensuring that the logs were kept in a state of good repair and accessibility. Routine inspections were mandated every 3 months, as per a Senate decree from 100 BCE, which specified that any signs of damage or deterioration must be reported immediately to the aediles responsible for public works. The aediles were charged with overseeing the maintenance of all public records, including the Senate's attendance logs, and thus played a crucial role in the institutional compliance framework. During these inspections, clerks would check for physical damage, such as warping or cracking of the wood, and the integrity of the bindings that held the scrolls together. The clerks employed a variety of tools, including simple wooden scrapers and cloths soaked in olive oil, to clean the surfaces of the logs and prevent the buildup of dust and moisture, which could lead to deterioration. A record of these maintenance activities was systematically logged in a separate register, which itself was also subject to audits by higher-ranking officials, ensuring that no aspect of the record-keeping system was neglected. Financial records and costs associated with the maintenance of the Senate's attendance logs were meticulously documented and subjected to regular scrutiny. The financial oversight was primarily managed by the quaestors, who were responsible for the fiscal health of the Senate. Beginning in 67 BCE, the quaestors instituted a standardized accounting method for tracking expenditures related to the logs. This included the costs of materials, labor, and any necessary repairs or replacements. For example, in 54 BCE, the cost of acquiring new cedar wood was recorded at approximately 10 denarii per cubic meter, while the cost for the iron fittings averaged around 3 denarii per unit. Maintenance expenses, such as the salary of the clerks and aediles involved in the upkeep of the logs, were calculated at 5% of the total annual budget allocated for administrative purposes. This rigorous tracking ensured that funds were allocated efficiently and transparently, minimizing the risk of corruption or misappropriation of resources. Personnel involved in the maintenance and compliance audits of the Senate's attendance logs played distinct roles, each with specific job descriptions and responsibilities. The primary personnel included the clerks, scribi, aediles, quaestors, and a cohort of assistants known as libertini, who were often former slaves freed for their service. The clerks were primarily responsible for the daily record keeping, ensuring that attendance was accurately noted and that any absences were justified and documented. The aediles, on the other hand, held a supervisory role, overseeing the clerk's activities and ensuring compliance with the Senate's regulations regarding log maintenance. Their responsibilities also extended to the physical storage and security of the logs, which included monitoring access to the storage facilities to prevent unauthorized tampering. The quaestors were responsible for financial oversight and ensuring that all expenditures related to the logs were documented and justifiable. The libertini served as aides to the clerks and aediles, often conducting preliminary audits of the logs and assisting in the maintenance procedures. Their involvement allowed for a more efficient workflow, as they could manage tasks such as transporting the logs and preparing them for inspections. This hierarchical structure facilitated a comprehensive approach to the management of the attendance logs, ensuring that every aspect, from record-keeping to financial accountability, was thoroughly addressed. Technical specifications for the attendance logs themselves were defined by a combination of legal requirements and practical considerations. The Senate established a set of standards in 63 BCE that dictated the format and contents of the logs. Each log was required to include specific fields, the date of the session, the names of attending senators, any recorded absences, and the reasons for those absences if applicable. The scrolls were typically inscribed in Latin with a stylus on wax tablets or parchment, depending on the resources available at the time. The dimensions of the scrolls were standardized to approximately 30 centimeters in width and 2 meters in length, allowing for a sufficient number of entries without excessive overlap. Each entry was to be recorded in a clear and legible hand, adhering to the Roman script conventions of the era. The use of abbreviations and symbols was discouraged to maintain clarity and prevent misinterpretation of the records. In conclusion, the dull history of the Roman Senate session attendance log maintenance and compliance audits reflects a systematic approach to governance that underscores the importance of record-keeping in the administration of the Republic. The construction methods and materials used in the logs, the rigorous maintenance procedures, the detailed financial records, the clear job descriptions for personnel, and the technical specifications of the logs all contributed to a robust framework for ensuring compliance and accountability. This framework, while seemingly mundane, played a critical role in the functioning of the Senate and the broader political landscape of the Roman Republic, providing a model of administrative efficiency that would influence future governance systems. The construction methods and materials used in the establishment of the Roman Senate session attendance log system were indicative of the broader architectural and engineering practices prevalent during the late Republic and into the early Empire, particularly from around 509 BC, when the Senate first began to formalize its processes, through to the consolidation of imperial authority in the 1st century AD. The logs, often housed in wooden chests or tablets made from a mixture of cedar and oak, were designed to withstand the test of time, given their critical importance in maintaining an accurate record of attendance and compliance. Cedar wood, known for its natural resistance to decay and pests, was frequently employed in these records. Specifically, the use of Lebanese cedar, Cedrus libani, was favored for its durability and aromatic properties. This wood was often sourced from the mountainous regions of modern-day Lebanon, which had been exploited since ancient times. The oak, Quercus robur, on the other hand, was readily available throughout Italy and the Mediterranean, providing a robust structural complement to the more fragrant cedar. The combination of these woods resulted in chests and tablets that were not only functional but also aesthetically pleasing, often adorned with carvings that depicted scenes of Roman governance and civic duty. Specific dates reveal the evolution of the log-keeping process. By 450 BC, the 12 tables codified many aspects of Roman law and governance, which included procedures for recording the attendance of senators. These tablets, typically measuring about 50 centimeters by 30 centimeters, were inscribed with wax or ink, depending on their intended permanence. In contrast, during the reign of Augustus, 27 BC, AD 14, the Senate adopted a more formalized approach, using wooden tablets that were bound together with bronze rings, allowing for easier transport and storage. A prime example of this system in action can be seen in the attendance logs maintained during critical events, such as the voting on the Lex Julia in 18 BC, which reformed the penal codes concerning marriage. The meticulous logging of senators present was essential for validating the legitimacy of the votes cast. Each senator's name was inscribed alongside a corresponding symbol indicating their attendance, e.g., a simple dot or a cross, facilitating a quick visual reference. As for measurements and specifications, the logs were typically crafted to various sizes for different purposes. Smaller tablets measuring about 20 centimeters by 15 centimeters were often used for daily attendance, while larger logs, such as those measuring 60 centimeters by 40 centimeters, were reserved for more significant gatherings or special decrees. The logs were often lined with a layer of wax, allowing for easy erasure and reuse, proving to be a practical solution for the ever-evolving legislative matters of Rome. The processes involved in creating and maintaining these logs were labor-intensive. Skilled artisans would first select and prepare the wood, ensuring it was properly seasoned to prevent warping. The tablets were then smoothed and treated with oils to enhance their longevity. Once prepared, officials would inscribe the necessary details, often employing a stylus made from metal or bone, which allowed for precision in recording names and votes. Historically, the importance of these logs cannot be overstated. They were not merely administrative tools, they were symbols of the Republican ideal of accountability and transparency. During the tumultuous times of the late Republic, particularly in the lead-up to the civil wars of the 1st century BC, the accuracy of these records became a matter of political life and death. Senators like Cicero often referenced the logs in their speeches to bolster arguments about accountability and the integrity of the Senate, underscoring their significance in the fabric of Roman governance. In summary, the construction methods and materials used in the Roman Senate session attendance log system reflect a rich tapestry of architectural practices, social norms, and political imperatives that shaped the governance of one of history's greatest empires. From the selection of durable woods to the meticulous recording processes, these logs served not only as functional records but also as enduring artifacts of Roman civilization, with their legacy echoing through the annals of history. The construction methods and materials utilized in the creation of the attendance logs for the Roman Senate were emblematic of the broader Roman penchant for durability and functionality. The primary material employed was parchment, crafted from animal skins, which could withstand the rigors of time more effectively than paper, a material that was not yet prevalent in the Roman world. The production of parchment involved a meticulous process. The skins of sheep, goats, or calves were carefully cleaned, stretched, and scraped to achieve a smooth writing surface. This procedure could take several weeks, depending on environmental conditions and the skill of the artisan involved. The dimensions of the parchment sheets varied, but a common size was approximately 24 inches in length and 16 inches in width. Once prepared, these sheets were often folded and sewn together into codices, which allowed for easy reference. The log entries were typically inscribed using a stylus made from sharpened metal or bone, with ink made from carbon black mixed with water and a binding agent. The resultant text was not only utilitarian but also bore the marks of the scribe's hand, which, according to Roman standards, was a reflection of the importance of the document. To maintain these logs, a series of procedures were established to ensure their integrity and accessibility. Each Senate session, held at the Curia, was meticulously documented. Following each session, the presiding consul or praetor would oversee the transcription of the session's minutes into the attendance log. This transcription process was carried out by a designated scribe, who was responsible for ensuring that all entries were accurate and legible. The logs were typically maintained in a designated area of the Curia, specifically in a wooden chest with secure fastenings to protect against potential damage or loss. Maintenance procedures included periodic reviews of the logs, which were conducted biannually. These reviews involved a thorough examination of the parchment's condition, checking for signs of wear such as tears or fading ink. Should any damage be found, the logs were sent to a specialized artisan known as a librarius, who was trained in the art of document restoration. The restorations typically involved resecuring loose pages, re-inking faded entries, and, in some cases, recopying entire sections of the log onto new parchment to preserve the information. Financial records related to the production and maintenance of the Senate attendance logs were meticulously kept. The costs incurred included expenditures on parchment, ink, and the services of scribes and librarii. For instance, in the year 27 BCE, a standard sheet of parchment cost approximately 1 denarius. A full Senate session log could require as many as 50 sheets, leading to a total parchment cost of 50 denarii. Additionally, the payment for scribes per session was set at 5 denarii, making the total cost of maintaining the attendance logs for that single session approximately 55 denarii. The financial oversight of these expenditures was the responsibility of the quaestor, an elected official tasked with managing public finances. Each quaestor was required to submit a detailed report to the Senate at the end of their term, which included an account of all expenses related to log maintenance. These reports were critical in ensuring compliance with the Senate's regulations on record keeping, and any discrepancies could lead to severe repercussions, including loss of office or public censure. Personnel involved in the maintenance of the attendance logs comprised a small but dedicated team. The primary roles included the consul or praetor, who presided over the Senate sessions, the scribe, who transcribed the sessions, and the librarius, who handled restorations. The consul or praetor was responsible for the overall accuracy of the logs, while the scribe's role was critical in the day-to-day documentation. Scribes were often young men from educated backgrounds, selected for their literacy and attention to detail. The librarii, often older and more experienced, were specialists who had honed their craft over years, ensuring that the documents remained in a state suitable for public record. The technical specifications of the attendance logs were also noteworthy. Each log entry was standardized to include specific details such as the date of the session, the names of the senators present, and any notable discussions or resolutions passed during the session. Dates were recorded using the Roman calendar system, which included the calends, first day of the month, nones, the fifth or seventh day, depending on the month, and ides, the 13th or 15th day. A typical entry might read, in the year of the consulship of Gaius Julius Caesar and Marcus Antonius, on the Ides of March, the following senators were present: Marcus Tullius Cicero, Gaius Cassius Longinus, and others. The type of ink used was also standardized, with specific recipes documented in various Roman texts. The ink was typically made from a mixture of carbon, water, and gum arabic, creating a viscous liquid that adhered well to the parchment. The choice of ink was crucial, as it needed to provide enough contrast to be legible while also being durable enough to resist fading over time. In summary, the history of Roman Senate session attendance log maintenance and compliance audits, while seemingly mundane, reveals a complex interplay of construction methods, meticulous maintenance procedures, detailed financial records, and defined personnel roles. Each aspect was critical to preserving the integrity of the logs, providing a transparent account of Senate activities, and ensuring compliance with the stringent standards set forth by Roman legislative procedures. This diligence in record-keeping not only served the immediate administrative needs of the Senate but also contributed to the historical legacy of Rome itself, providing an enduring glimpse into the political machinations of one of history's most influential civilizations. The logs, though often overlooked, remain a testament to the Romans' commitment to governance and the preservation of civic duty. The construction methods and materials utilized in the creation of the attendance logs for the Roman Senate were emblematic of the broader Roman penchant for durability and functionality. The primary material employed was parchment, crafted from animal skins, which could withstand the rigors of time more effectively than paper, a material that was not yet prevalent in the Roman world. The production of parchment involved a meticulous process. The skins of sheep, goats, or calves were carefully cleaned and prepared to create a writing surface that was suitable for recording important governmental activities. The origins of parchment can be traced back to the ancient city of Pergamon, in modern-day Turkey, around the 2nd century BCE. This innovative material gained prominence as a superior alternative to papyrus, which was the primary writing medium in the Mediterranean region until that time. Papyrus, made from the pith of the papyrus plant, could not endure the test of time as well as parchment. The Romans, recognizing the need for more durable documentation methods, adopted parchment for various official records, including attendance logs, legal documents, and literary texts. By the 1st century BCE, parchment had become widely used across the Roman Empire, with production centers emerging in regions such as Egypt and Asia Minor. The process of creating parchment was labor-intensive and required skilled artisans. After selecting the appropriate animal skins, The initial step involved soaking the skins in a lime solution to loosen the hair and flesh. Following this, the skins were scraped clean, and then stretched on a frame to dry. The drying process was crucial. It ensured that the skins retained their flatness and smoothness, qualities necessary for writing. Once dried, the parchment was further refined using pumice stones or other abrasives to achieve a fine writing surface. The thickness of parchment varied based on its intended use, but typically it ranged from 0.25 to 0.5 millimeters. The final product was a strong, flexible, and somewhat translucent medium that could be easily rolled or folded for storage. In the Roman Senate, attendance logs were crucial for maintaining order during sessions and ensuring that the senators were duly present for crucial decisions. These logs were often bound in codex form, which consisted of multiple sheets of parchment sewn together along one edge. This format allowed for easy flipping through the pages, a significant advancement over the scrolls that had been commonly used prior. The codex format, which became popular around the 1st century CE, not only facilitated the recording of information but also allowed for better organization of documents, a reflection of the increasingly bureaucratic nature of the Roman state. The practice of recording attendance was not merely a formality, it was essential for the functioning of the Senate. Each senator's presence was recorded alongside significant legislative discussions and decisions. The logs included detailed entries that noted the date of the meeting, the names of the senators present, and the topics discussed. For instance, during the critical sessions of the Senate in 49 BCE, when Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon, attendance logs would have reflected the heightened tensions and the presence of key figures such as Pompey and Cicero. These logs served not only as a record of participation but also as a historical document that chronicled the political landscape of the time. Beyond documenting attendance, the logs could also contain annotations and remarks by the senators themselves, which provided insights into their perspectives and the prevailing political discourse. For example, entries from the time of the Gracchi brothers, Tiberius and Gaius, who pushed for significant social reforms in the 2nd century BCE, would have captured the divisions within the Senate and the opposition they faced, illustrating the complexities of Roman politics. In addition to parchment, the Romans also utilized various inks for writing on these logs. The ink was typically composed of carbon black or other organic materials mixed with water and a binding agent such as gum arabic. The use of different inks could signify the importance of certain documents or the status of the individuals involved. For example, official decrees might be written with a more permanent ink, while preliminary notes might use a less durable ink that could be easily erased or altered. In examining the broader historical context, it is evident that the Roman approach to documentation was integral to the functioning of their vast and complex state. As the empire expanded, the need for effective communication and record-keeping became increasingly important. The attendance logs served as a foundation for more sophisticated bureaucratic practices that would evolve in later civilizations. The emphasis on durability, organization, and clarity in these logs not only reflects the practical needs of the Roman Senate but also illustrates the cultural values of the time, prioritizing governance, accountability, and the preservation of history. In conclusion, the construction methods and materials of Roman attendance logs reveal a great deal about the society that produced them. The careful crafting of parchment, the systematic recording of attendance, and the use of various inks combined to create an essential tool for governance. These logs not only facilitated the functioning of the Senate but also served as historical documents that would inform future generations about the political dynamics of ancient Rome. As we reflect on these practices, we can appreciate the Roman commitment to durability and functionality, which has left a lasting legacy in the realms of documentation and record-keeping. In ancient Rome, the meticulousness of the Senate session attendance log maintenance was emblematic of broader administrative practices that characterized the burgeoning governance of the Republic. Central to this endeavor was the construction of the physical logs themselves, which adhered to standards that, while seemingly mundane, were critical for ensuring accuracy and durability over time. Construction methods and materials. The construction of attendance logs began with the selection of appropriate materials. The Romans utilized a variety of writing surfaces, with wax tablets, tabulae cerati, being among the most commonly employed. These tablets were made from thin sheets of wood, typically constructed from the wood of the birch tree, which was readily available in the Italian peninsula. Each tablet was coated with a layer of wax, allowing senators to inscribe their names and attendance using a stylus made from metal or bone. The dimensions of these tablets generally measured approximately 20 centimeters by 30 centimeters, providing sufficient space for multiple entries. The logs were often bound together in groups of 10, with a leather or cord fastening, facilitating easy transport and storage. In cases of formal records, parchment derived from animal hides was also used, particularly when long-term preservation was required. Parchment logs were usually about 25 centimeters wide and could extend to several meters in length when unrolled. To ensure durability, the edges of the tablets were often reinforced with a thin strip of copper or bronze, which protected against wear and tear. The Roman preference for durability is evident in these construction techniques, as the logs were designed to withstand the rigors of daily use in the Senate chambers. Maintenance procedures. Maintenance of these attendance logs was a significant responsibility, typically assigned to a designated official known as the scriba or tabularius. The primary duties of these clerks included routine inspections of the logs for damage, which involved a thorough examination of both the physical state of the tablets and the legibility of the inscriptions. In 45 BCE, during the administration of Julius Caesar, a decree was issued mandating that all attendance records be reviewed quarterly. This established a systematic approach to maintenance, requiring clerks to replace any worn tablets and to ensure that all inscriptions were preserved through careful transcription onto new tablets. The process of transcription involved meticulous copying, where each character was inscribed using a stylus, with the new tablet being measured against the original for accuracy. The Romans employed a variety of cleaning techniques to maintain the integrity of wax tablets. A cloth soaked in warm water was often used to smooth the wax surface, allowing for corrections to be made. Additionally, a mixture of olive oil and vinegar was sometimes used to restore the surface sheen of the tablets, ensuring that inscriptions remained visible. Financial records and costs. The financial implications of maintaining the Senate attendance logs were considerable, albeit often overlooked in favor of more prominent expenditures. The costs associated with materials were tracked meticulously. In 70 BCE, an audit revealed that the Senate spent approximately 12,000 sestertii on wax and parchment alone over the course of a year, indicating the high volume of logs that required maintenance and replacement. The costs for labor were also significant. The salary for a tabularius was established at 1,200 sestertii annually, a figure determined by the Senate in 63 BCE to reflect the increasing complexity of maintaining accurate records. This salary was supplemented by a small stipend for materials, thus ensuring that the clerical staff had the necessary resources to perform their duties effectively. Expenditure reports were compiled biannually, detailing the costs incurred from the purchase of materials, salaries, and other associated expenses. It was not uncommon for Senate sessions to be interrupted by discussions regarding budget allocations for record keeping, reflecting the importance placed on this aspect of governance. Personnel and job descriptions. The personnel involved in maintaining attendance logs were typically selected from educated classes, as literacy was a prerequisite for the role. The scriba was not only responsible for the physical maintenance of the logs but also for ensuring that each senator's attendance was accurately recorded. This required a keen attention to detail, as errors could lead to disputes over attendance and, consequently, voting rights. The role of the tabularius was often supplemented by junior clerks, who assisted in the transcription of records and the preparation of new tablets. These junior clerks, known as tabularii, were typically young men from affluent families who sought to gain experience in public service. The hierarchical structure within the clerical staff ensured that responsibilities were distributed effectively, with senior clerks overseeing the work of their subordinates. In addition to clerical staff, the Senate employed a small team of artisans responsible for producing the tablets. These artisans, known as faber tabularius, specialized in woodworking and were skilled in crafting the wooden frames of the tablets. Their work was essential in ensuring that the logs met the Senate specifications for size and durability. Technical specifications. The technical specifications of the attendance logs were outlined in a series of decrees issued by the Senate, notably in 44 BCE during the tenure of Caesar. These specifications included guidelines on the dimensions of the tablets, the type of materials to be used, and the methods for recording attendance. The wax tablets were required to have a minimum thickness of 1 centimeter to ensure durability, while the writing surface was mandated to be at least 15 centimeters by 25 centimeters, allowing ample space for multiple entries. The stylus used for inscribing names was specified to be no thicker than 5 millimeters, ensuring that entries were clear and legible. The Senate also stipulated that each log should contain a cover page, which included the date of the session, the names of the presiding officials, and the purpose of the meeting. This cover page was to be inscribed in a standardized format, which facilitated easy identification and retrieval of records. In 30 BCE, a further refinement of these technical specifications mandated the use of specific ink formulations for parchment logs. The ink was to be composed of carbon black mixed with a gum arabic binder, ensuring that inscriptions were permanent and resistant to fading. In summary, the meticulous practices surrounding the maintenance of Senate session attendance logs in ancient Rome reflect a commitment to administrative accuracy and efficiency. The construction, maintenance, financial oversight, personnel structures, and technical specifications outlined herein illustrate the complexity and importance of record-keeping in the governance of the Republic. Despite the seemingly mundane nature of these activities, they were foundational to the functioning of Rome's political institutions and have left a lasting legacy in the annals of bureaucratic history. The dull history of Roman Senate session attendance log maintenance and compliance audits. Part 6: Regional Variations and Comparisons. The Roman Senate, while centrally located in the heart of Rome, exhibited a remarkable degree of regional variation in the maintenance of session attendance logs. These variations can largely be attributed to the disparate administrative practices that evolved in the various provinces and regions of the vast Roman Empire. One might consider the distinct methodologies employed in provinces such as Hispania, Gallia, and Sicilia, each reflecting the local customs and governance structures. In Hispania, for instance, the attendance logs were often managed by local magistrates who were charged with the dual responsibility of ensuring compliance with central directives while also accounting for local peculiarities. The records were typically inscribed on wax tablets, which allowed for easy erasure and modification, a practice that was particularly useful in the dynamic political landscape of the Iberian Peninsula. This adaptability, while beneficial in certain contexts, often led to discrepancies in the logs, as the same senator might be recorded as present in multiple sessions due to the frequent revisions. Conversely, in Gallia, the maintenance of attendance logs adhered more closely to the dictates of central authority. The senatorial presence in provincial councils was often monitored by a designated official, known as the proconsul, who was tasked specifically with ensuring that attendance logs were meticulously maintained and reported back to Rome. These logs, often inscribed on papyrus scrolls, were more rigid in format, and the penalties for inaccuracies were stringent. The consequences for a senator failing to appear could be as severe as a reduction in their senatorial privileges or even public humiliation, thereby fostering a stricter adherence to attendance. In Sicilia, the local governance was influenced by a combination of Roman and Greek traditions. Attendance logs in this province often featured a bilingual format, with names recorded in both Latin and Greek, reflecting the diverse cultural influences. The use of stylus on wax tablets remained prevalent, but local scribes often added decorative elements to the logs, which, while aesthetically pleasing, sometimes obscured the critical data needed for compliance audits. The decorative embellishments were considered a testament to the cultural richness of the region, yet they posed significant challenges for auditors who sought to distill the necessary information from an overly ornate presentation. Part 7: Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of attendance log maintenance practices can be segmented into several distinct periods, each marked by significant socio-political changes within the Roman Empire. Initially, during the Republic, 509 to 27 BCE, the Senate operated with a relatively informal approach to attendance tracking, primarily relying on oral declarations of presence. The censors, or censors, played an instrumental role in the early years, conducting periodic reviews of senatorial attendance as part of their broader duties of census and moral oversight. However, as the Republic transitioned into the Empire, 27 BCE onward, the increasing complexity of governance necessitated more rigorous documentation. The establishment of the Principate under Augustus heralded a new era of bureaucratic formalization. Attendance logs began to take on a more structured format, with the introduction of standardized scrolls and official seals to authenticate records. This period also saw the emergence of formalized compliance audits, which were conducted annually to ensure that attendance was consistent with senatorial duties. The later period of the Empire, particularly during the crisis of the 3rd century, AD 235 to 284, marked yet another transformation in attendance log maintenance. As the Empire faced unprecedented challenges, including economic instability and military threats, the Senate's capacity to maintain accurate records diminished significantly. The chaotic political landscape led to a reliance on hastily compiled logs, often lacking the rigor of earlier records. The era was characterized by a pragmatic approach where the mere existence of a log was deemed sufficient for compliance, rather than the accuracy of the content within. Post-Constantine, AD 306 onward, a renewed emphasis on bureaucratic efficiency emerged, coinciding with the establishment of Constantinople as the new capital. This period prompted the development of more sophisticated record-keeping methodologies, including the use of codices instead of scrolls, which allowed for easier reference and cross-referencing of attendance records. The shift towards a more bureaucratic state led to the standardization of audit processes, ensuring that attendance logs were not only maintained but also regularly reviewed for compliance with imperial edicts. Part 8: Bureaucratic Regulations and Laws. The Roman Senate's attendance log maintenance was governed by a labyrinthine array of bureaucratic regulations and laws, reflecting the empire's overarching commitment to administrative order, albeit with varying degrees of effectiveness. The Lex Claudia, enacted in 218 BCE, stipulated that attendance at Senate sessions was mandatory for all members, and non-compliance would result in significant financial penalties. This law marked a pivotal moment in the codification of attendance-related regulations, as it established a legal framework for accountability. Subsequent laws reinforced this mandate, with the Lex Julia of 18 BCE introducing more stringent measures against absenteeism. This legislation not only outlined the penalties for non-attendance but also established a formal mechanism for the registration of attendance, mandating that each senator sign a roll at the beginning of each session. The introduction of the roll call system marked a significant departure from earlier practices and facilitated the auditing process, as it provided a clear record of who was present at each session. The bureaucratic apparatus surrounding attendance log maintenance continued to expand throughout the empire, with various edicts issued by emperors that further refined the compliance process. The Edict of Maximum Prices in AD 301, although primarily concerned with economic regulation, reflected the interdependence of various bureaucratic functions, including the necessity of maintaining accurate attendance records to justify resource allocations within the Senate. By the later years of the empire, the complexity of the bureaucratic regulations surrounding attendance logs had reached a zenith. The establishment of detailed procedural manuals, often referred to as libri senatoriae, provided explicit guidelines on maintaining logs, conducting audits, and reporting discrepancies. These manuals, while essential for bureaucratic efficiency, often contributed to the opacity of the system, as they were frequently revised and updated, leading to confusion among senators and clerks alike. Part 9. Supply Chain and Logistics. The logistical aspects of maintaining attendance logs, while seemingly mundane, were critical to the overall efficiency of the Senate's operations. The supply chain associated with the production and distribution of record-keeping materials, wax tablets, styluses, ink, and papyrus, was inherently complex, involving numerous suppliers and artisans throughout the empire. The sourcing of wax tablets, for instance, necessitated a network of specialized producers, often located in regions renowned for their beekeeping practices, such as the provinces of Gaul and Hispania. The procurement of high-quality wax was vital, as inferior products could lead to legibility issues or rapid degradation of the records. Additionally, the stylus, an essential tool for inscribing attendance logs, was commonly crafted from metals such as bronze or iron, necessitating a separate supply chain that was often subject to market fluctuations and resource availability. The logistics of papyrus procurement, primarily sourced from Egypt, introduced further complexities. The Senate relied heavily on a stable supply of this material for inscribing formal attendance logs and other documents. The transport of papyrus from Alexandria to Rome was fraught with challenges, including piracy, adverse weather conditions, and bureaucratic red tape. Any disruption in the supply chain could result in significant delays in record maintenance, ultimately affecting compliance audits. Moreover, the logistical challenges extended to the storage and preservation of attendance logs. The Senate employed dedicated archivists, known as tabularii, who were responsible for the careful organization and safeguarding of these records. The storage facilities, often located in the Curia Julia, were designed to protect logs from environmental damage and unauthorized access. However, the sheer volume of records generated over the decades necessitated a careful inventory system to ensure that the logs could be retrieved efficiently when needed for compliance audits. Part 10. Record-keeping methods. The methods employed for record-keeping within the Senate evolved significantly over time, reflecting broader technological advancements and administrative needs. Initially, as previously mentioned, oral attendance declarations sufficed, but this approach was soon deemed inadequate due to the growing size of the Senate and the complexities of governance. By the late Republic, the introduction of wax tablets marked a significant advancement in record-keeping practices. Senators would inscribe their names upon these tablets at the commencement of each session, allowing for quick verification of attendance. The use of wax tablets also permitted easy modifications. However, this flexibility often led to disputes and accusations of tampering during compliance audits. The transition to papyrus scrolls represented another pivotal shift in record-keeping. These scrolls allowed for more comprehensive documentation, enabling the inclusion of detailed notes regarding attendance patterns, absences, and associated reasons for non-attendance. The scroll format also facilitated easier archiving, as multiple sessions could be recorded sequentially without the need for constant rewriting. In the later years of the empire, the advent of codices, a format that combined the advantages of both papyrus scrolls and wax tablets, transformed the landscape of record-keeping. Codices, which consisted of pages bound together, enabled more organized and efficient documentation, allowing for rapid access to information during compliance audits. This method significantly reduced the time required for auditors to sift through records, enhancing overall bureaucratic efficiency. The development of specialized inks, often produced from carbon or plant-based sources, further improved the legibility and durability of attendance logs. As the quality of inks improved, so too did the standards for record-keeping, leading to greater scrutiny during audits. The meticulous nature of recording attendance, coupled with the advancements in materials and methodologies, underscored the Roman Senate's commitment to bureaucratic order, even amid the complexities of governance. In conclusion, the history of the Roman Senate session attendance log maintenance and compliance audits is a tapestry woven with intricate details of regional variations, evolution over time, bureaucratic regulations, logistics, and record-keeping methods. Each facet, while tedious in nature, reflects the broader administrative ethos of the Roman Empire, revealing a civilization that placed immense value on order and accountability within its governance structures. The dull history of Roman Senate session attendance log maintenance and compliance audits, an exhaustive examination of regional variations, temporal evolution, bureaucratic regulations, supply chain logistics, and record-keeping methods. Introduction. The Roman Senate, a cornerstone of ancient governance, maintained an intricate system of attendance log management that reflected the political, social, and bureaucratic realities of its time. Beyond the mere act of logging attendance, this practice was deeply embedded within the broader tapestry of Roman life, spanning regional variations, temporal evolutions, and intricate bureaucratic regulations. This examination aims to delve into these aspects with an emphasis on the mundane yet pivotal details that underscore the importance of attendance log maintenance and compliance audits. Regional variations and comparisons. The Roman Republic and later the Empire encompassed a vast array of regions, each with its unique challenges and characteristics that influenced the maintenance of Senate session attendance logs. In Rome itself, the core of the Republic, attendance was meticulously recorded by clerks known as scribi. These clerks were often chosen from the ranks of the educated elite, tasked with ensuring that every senator's presence, or absence, was accurately documented, reflecting not only the senators' commitment to civic duty but also their political alliances and influence. In contrast, provinces such as Gaul or Hispania presented distinct complications. Here, local governors were often responsible for maintaining attendance records, which were subject to the interpretations and biases of these officials. The lack of centralized oversight led to significant discrepancies. Some governors, in an attempt to curry favor with the Senate, might inflate attendance figures, whereas others may underreport to emphasize their authority. Such regional inconsistencies highlighted the need for standardized practices across the vast empire. The directives from Rome, often articulated in Senatus Consulta, aimed to mitigate these discrepancies but were often met with varying degrees of compliance. Comparative studies of attendance log practices between Rome and its provinces reveal a fascinating dichotomy. While Rome prided itself on bureaucratic precision, provincial practices were often marred by local customs and a lack of resources. This disparity necessitated a series of compliance audits, aimed at ensuring that attendance logs across the empire adhered to the standards set by the central authority. The findings of these audits often revealed a patchwork of adherence, with some provinces excelling in their record-keeping practices while others struggled significantly. Evolution over different time periods. The systems for attendance log maintenance and compliance audits evolved significantly over time, reflecting broader changes within the Roman political landscape. During the early Republic, the Senate was a relatively informal body, and attendance logs were rudimentary at best. Senators would mark their presence with simple notations, often relying on memory and informal communication. As the Senate's power grew, particularly during the late Republic, the need for more structured log-keeping became apparent. With the rise of ambitious leaders and the increasing complexity of Roman politics, the Senate's attendance logs began to reflect not merely the presence of senators but also the intricacies of political maneuvering. The introduction of votum, or voting records, necessitated a more detailed approach to attendance logging. Senators were now required to not only log their presence but also indicate their voting intentions, leading to an expansion of the clerical workload. The transition from the Republic to the Empire marked another pivotal moment in the evolution of attendance record-keeping. Under Augustus, the first emperor, a more bureaucratic approach was adopted. The establishment of the census and regular audits became standard practice, with attendance logs serving as vital tools for assessing loyalty and influence within the Senate. This period saw the introduction of more sophisticated record-keeping methods, including the use of wax tablets and later parchment, which allowed for greater longevity and accessibility of records. Bureaucratic regulations and laws. The Roman Senate was governed by a series of bureaucratic regulations that shaped the maintenance of attendance logs. These regulations were codified in a series of laws and decrees, often referred to as lex. One of the most significant was the Lex Aelia Fufia, which mandated that attendance logs be maintained in a standardized format. This law aimed to reduce discrepancies and ensure that senators were held accountable for their participation. Additionally, the role of the praefectus urbi became increasingly important in overseeing the compliance of attendance logs. This official was responsible for ensuring that the records adhered to both the Lex Aelia Fufia and any additional mandates issued by the Senate. Regular audits were instituted to verify compliance, with auditors often tasked with cross-referencing attendance logs against other records, such as roll calls and voting records, to ensure accuracy. The bureaucratic landscape was not without its challenges. Senators often found ways to circumvent regulations, leading to a culture of compliance that was more about appearance than actual adherence to rules. The audits conducted by the praefectus urbi often revealed creative accounting practices, such as the use of proxy attendance, where a senator could have another individual sign in on their behalf. Such practices prompted further regulations designed to close these loopholes, resulting in an ever-expanding web of bureaucratic oversight. Supply chain and logistics. The maintenance of attendance logs was not merely an administrative task, it was also deeply intertwined with supply chain and logistics considerations. The materials required for record keeping, such as wax tablets, ink, and styluses, necessitated a steady supply chain. The sourcing of these materials was often a logistical challenge, particularly during times of war or economic instability. The production of high-quality wax tablets, for instance, required skilled artisans and access to specific resources, such as beeswax and wood. The procurement process often involved intricate negotiations and relationships with local suppliers, which could influence the timing and quality of attendance log maintenance. Moreover, the transportation of these materials to various provincial centers posed additional logistical hurdles. During the height of the empire, the extensive road networks facilitated the movement of goods, yet bureaucratic inefficiencies often led to delays. This was particularly evident during periods of military campaigns when resources were redirected, and local governors were left to manage with diminished supplies. The logistics of maintaining a steady supply of attendance log materials became a crucial aspect of ensuring compliance across the empire. The interplay between supply chain management and attendance log maintenance was further complicated by the need for training clerks and officials in proper record-keeping practices. The education of these individuals was often inconsistent, leading to further variations in how attendance logs were maintained across regions. The Senate's attempts to standardize this process through formal training programs were met with varying degrees of success, often hampered by the differing levels of resources available in urban versus rural areas. Record-keeping methods. The methods of record-keeping employed by the Roman Senate evolved alongside the political and bureaucratic landscape. In the earliest days, attendance was recorded using simple notches on wooden tablets or by verbal acknowledgement. Over time, as the Senate's functions expanded, more sophisticated methods were adopted. The transition to wax tablets, which allowed for easy erasure and amendment, marked a significant step in record-keeping. Senators could alter their attendance records as necessary, a practice that both facilitated flexibility and invited potential abuses. As the empire progressed into the imperial phase, the introduction of parchment represented a further advancement in record-keeping methods. This material was more durable and allowed for long-term storage of records. The invention of ink, derived from natural materials, also enhanced the legibility and permanence of attendance logs. The use of ink on parchment revolutionized the way records were maintained, allowing for clearer documentation and easier review during compliance audits. The clerical practices surrounding attendance logs also became more formalized. The introduction of standardized templates for recording attendance, including designated spaces for names, dates, and voting intentions, helped to streamline the process. Additionally, the integration of cross-referencing systems, where attendance logs were compared against other official records, added layers of verification that sought to uphold the integrity of the documentation process. The Roman Senate's commitment to meticulous record-keeping was not merely a bureaucratic exercise, it reflected the underlying values of accountability and civic participation. The maintenance of attendance logs served as a testament to the senators' dedication to their roles within the Republic and later the Empire, highlighting the intricate relationship between governance and record-keeping. Conclusion. The history of attendance log maintenance and compliance audits within the Roman Senate encapsulates a broader narrative of bureaucratic evolution, regional diversity, and logistical complexity. From the humble beginnings of simple notations to the sophisticated practices that characterized the imperial period, the journey of attendance log management reveals the intricacies of Roman governance. The interplay between regional variations, temporal shifts, bureaucratic regulations, supply chain logistics, and record-keeping methods underscores the importance of this seemingly mundane aspect of Roman political life. Through the lens of attendance logs, we gain insight into the broader themes of accountability, civic duty, and the challenges of governance in a vast and diverse empire. As we reflect on the tedious yet vital history of Senate session attendance log maintenance, we are reminded of the meticulous nature of Roman bureaucratic practices and their enduring legacy in the annals of history. ### The dull history of Roman Senate session attendance log maintenance and compliance audits. ### Part 8, Regional Variations and Comparisons. The Roman Senate, despite its centralized authority, exhibited notable regional variations in the maintenance of attendance logs and compliance with attendance mandates. These differences can be elucidated by examining factors such as local governance structures, regional demographics, and prevailing cultural attitudes towards civic duty. In provinces such as Hispania, where Roman influence had permeated deeply yet retained local customs, attendance log maintenance was often less rigid. The local senatorial class, comprised of both Roman citizens and indigenous leaders, exhibited a casual approach to compliance. The attendance logs in these regions were sometimes handwritten on parchment and maintained by local scribes, who were more concerned with the accuracy of their penmanship than the rigor of the documentation process. This resulted in a somewhat haphazard approach to record keeping, where names were often misspelled or omitted altogether, leading to discrepancies when the logs were reviewed by central authorities in Rome. Conversely, in regions such as Gaul, where Roman authority had been more recently established and the integration of local leaders into the senatorial framework was still in flux, the attendance logs were maintained with a greater degree of scrutiny. The presence of Roman legions and the visibility of imperial power led to a more disciplined approach, as local officials feared repercussions for any discrepancies. Thus, the attendance logs in Gaul were often meticulously maintained, with each senator's attendance being recorded by appointed clerks who utilized a standardized format. This emphasis on compliance was further complicated by the varying interpretations of what constituted a valid excuse for absence, leading to extensive debates and localized regulations that differed significantly from those established in Rome. ###### Part 9, Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of attendance log maintenance and compliance audits within the Roman Senate can be segmented into distinct periods, each characterized by its unique challenges and reforms. During the early Republic, for instance, the focus was predominantly on establishing the legitimacy of the Senate as a governing body. Attendance logs from this period were rudimentary, often recorded on wax tablets and updated sporadically, reflecting the nascent nature of bureaucratic processes. As the Republic transitioned into the imperial period, the need for more systematic record-keeping became apparent. The establishment of official clerical positions, such as the scribe, marked a significant shift in how attendance was recorded. This period witnessed the introduction of more formalized procedures for compliance audits, necessitating the development of a standardized log format. By the time of Augustus, the Senate had adopted a more regimented approach to recording attendance, with logs being prepared in advance of each session and distributed to senators for verification. The late imperial period saw the advent of significant bureaucratic reforms under emperors such as Diocletian. These reforms introduced a more comprehensive regulatory framework that mandated the preservation of attendance logs for extended periods, often requiring audits to be conducted biannually. The increased emphasis on accountability was not merely bureaucratic but also served to reinforce the emperor's authority by ensuring that senators could be held responsible for their attendance, or lack thereof. The complex layers of this bureaucratic evolution reflect a broader trend within Roman governance, where the focus shifted from personal loyalty to institutional accountability. Part 10 Bureaucratic Regulations and Laws. Bureaucratic regulations regarding attendance log maintenance and compliance audits in the Roman Senate were not merely procedural, they were enshrined in a series of laws and edicts that evolved over time. The earliest regulations can be traced back to the Lex Vilia Annalis of 180 BCE, which established the principle that senators must be present to fulfill their duties, thereby necessitating the creation of attendance logs. As the Senate's role expanded, so too did the complexity of the regulations governing attendance. By the time of the late Republic, a series of laws were enacted that outlined specific requirements for log maintenance, including stipulations for the preservation of records for a minimum of 5 years. This period was deemed necessary to ensure that any disputes regarding attendance could be resolved with reference to the logs. Moreover, the advent of the Lex Aelia de Six Publica further formalized the consequences of non-compliance, instituting penalties for senators who failed to attend a specified number of sessions. These penalties ranged from fines to public shaming, thereby creating a culture of accountability that permeated the Senate. The introduction of these laws not only reflected the increasing bureaucratization of Roman governance but also highlighted the tension between the personal freedoms of senators and the collective responsibilities they bore as guardians of the Republic. Part 11 Supply Chain and Logistics. The supply chain and logistics associated with the maintenance of attendance logs were far more intricate than one might initially surmise. The process began long before the actual sessions, with various materials required for log maintenance, including parchment, ink, and styluses. The procurement of these materials often fell to local magistrates or appointed clerks, who were responsible for ensuring that sufficient supplies were available ahead of each session. In Rome, parchment was typically sourced from specialized workshops that produced high-quality writing materials. The logistics of transporting these supplies to the provinces posed considerable challenges, particularly in regions where road conditions were poor or where local conflicts disrupted trade routes. Consequently, local officials often resorted to utilizing alternative writing surfaces, such as wooden tablets coated with wax, which could be reused but lacked the permanence of parchment. Once the materials were secured, The actual process of recording attendance required meticulous planning. Each session's attendance log was typically drafted in advance, with senators' names pre-listed according to their expected attendance. This pre-drafting process necessitated coordination among various clerks, who communicated through a network of messengers to ensure that any changes in attendance, including absences due to illness, travel, or political obligations, were accurately reflected in the logs. The logistics did not end with the recording of attendance. Compliance audits required the transportation of these logs to central authorities, who would review them for accuracy. This often involved lengthy delays, as logs might be submitted for review only after considerable time had elapsed since the session. The logistical challenges associated with the transport and storage of these records underscored the importance of maintaining a reliable supply chain, as any disruptions could result in incomplete records and subsequent compliance issues. Part 12 Record-keeping methods. The methods employed for record-keeping in the Roman Senate were diverse and evolved over time, reflecting changes in technology, administrative practices, and cultural attitudes towards documentation. Initially, attendance was recorded using wax tablets, which allowed for easy alterations but posed challenges in terms of permanence. Scribes would inscribe names into the wax surface using styluses, and absences could be noted through the removal of wax, although this method rendered the final record less reliable. As the Senate evolved, so too did its record-keeping methods. The introduction of parchment marked a significant advancement, allowing for more durable and permanent records. Parchment logs were often bound together and stored in designated archives, where they could be retrieved for audits as necessary. The use of ink, typically made from soot and mixed with water and gum, provided a more lasting solution, although it required careful handling to prevent smudging or fading over time. The clerical workforce responsible for maintaining these logs employed a variety of techniques to enhance the accuracy and efficiency of record keeping. For instance, the use of abbreviations became commonplace, allowing scribes to record attendance swiftly without sacrificing legibility. Additionally, the practice of cross-referencing attendance logs with other official documents, such as financial records or decrees, became an integral part of the auditing process, reinforcing the interconnected nature of governance. In the late imperial period, the introduction of standardized formats for attendance logs facilitated greater uniformity across regions. These logs were often printed or stamped with official seals to prevent forgery or tampering, further enhancing their reliability. However, the reliance on standardized formats did not eliminate the potential for human error, and discrepancies between different regional logs could lead to protracted disputes and necessitate further audits. In conclusion, the history of Roman Senate session attendance log maintenance and compliance audits is a tapestry woven from the threads of regional variations, evolving bureaucratic regulations, logistical challenges, and diverse record-keeping methods. Each of these elements contributed to the larger narrative of governance in ancient Rome, illuminating the intricate and often tedious nature of bureaucratic processes that underpinned one of history's most influential political institutions. The dull history of Roman Senate session attendance log maintenance and compliance audits has, to this point, traversed the labyrinthine corridors of bureaucratic minutiae with a certain level of diligence. As we explore the multifaceted dimensions of this subject further, we shall delve into the regional variations and comparisons of attendance log maintenance, the evolution of these practices over different time periods, the bureaucratic regulations and laws surrounding such records, the supply chain and logistics involved in the dissemination of attendance records, and the record-keeping methods that have come to define this peculiar aspect of Roman governance. Regional variations and comparisons. The Roman Senate, while ostensibly a singular institution, operated within a framework that was influenced by regional variances. The provinces, for instance, exhibited distinct differences in how attendance was recorded and maintained. In the provinces of Gaul and Hispania, where local customs and governance structures diverged significantly from those in the Italian peninsula, the log maintenance tended to rely heavily on local magistrates. These magistrates, often appointed by the Senate to oversee provincial affairs, were responsible for ensuring that attendance records adhered to both local regulations and those of the Central Senate in Rome. In contrast, in regions such as Sicily and Africa, where Roman influence had been more deeply entrenched, attendance logs were often more standardized, reflecting a greater adherence to Roman norms. The influence of local practices sometimes led to a blending of Roman bureaucratic methods with indigenous systems, resulting in a unique amalgamation that would affect compliance audits. For example, in Sicilian cities, the interplay of Greek and Roman practices led to a dual record system that sought to account for both Roman citizen attendance and that of local dignitaries. Moreover, the Senate's approach to attendance log maintenance showed variations based on the political climate of the region. In times of unrest, such as during the Social War or the upheavals of the late Republic, regional governors might have been less rigorous in maintaining accurate logs, opting instead for hastily compiled records that could reflect fluctuating attendance due to military mobilizations or civic unrest. Such discrepancies would later necessitate extensive compliance audits, wherein officials were often tasked with reconstructing attendance data from fragmented records. Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of attendance log maintenance practices within the Roman Senate can be traced through several key phases, each marked by shifts in governance, societal expectations, and technological advancements. During the early Republic, attendance records were relatively simple, often handwritten on wax tablets. These primitive logs were subject to the vagaries of the elements and the limitations of writing technology. The logs themselves were not formally standardized, leading to a patchwork of documentation practices that varied widely among senators. As Rome transitioned from a republic to an empire, a significant bureaucratic transformation occurred. The introduction of more sophisticated record-keeping methods, such as the use of parchment and the codex format, allowed for more durable and organized documentation. This shift not only improved the longevity of attendance records but also facilitated the development of more complex compliance audits. The role of the Senate in governance expanded, necessitating a more systematic approach to attendance log maintenance. Senate clerks, known as aediles, became increasingly responsible for the meticulous upkeep of attendance logs, ensuring that they reflected an accurate picture of participation in Senate sessions. By the late Empire, attendance logs had become highly formalized. The codification of laws regarding record maintenance, such as the Lex Cornelia, established specific guidelines for how attendance should be recorded, who was responsible for maintaining these records, and the frequency of compliance audits. The introduction of the census, which required a detailed accounting of citizens and their participation in civic duties, further underscored the importance of accurate attendance logs. Bureaucratic regulations and laws. The bureaucratic regulations governing attendance log maintenance are a labyrinthine aspect of Roman governance that is often overlooked. Several key laws and edicts shaped the framework within which senators operated. In the early days of the Republic, the lack of formal regulations meant that senators often relied on informal agreements and personal integrity to ensure attendance. However, as the Senate's role evolved, the need for more stringent regulations became apparent. The aforementioned Lex Cornelia set forth the foundational regulations that would govern attendance log maintenance. This law mandated that each senator sign an attendance log at the beginning of every session, a practice that not only served to document participation but also to establish accountability among senators. Violation of these regulations could lead to penalties, including fines and, in extreme cases, censure from the Senate. In addition to the Lex Cornelia, various emperors issued edicts that refined and expanded upon these regulations. Emperor Augustus, for instance, implemented the Lex Julia, which further emphasized the importance of attendance in maintaining political legitimacy. His edict mandated that senators who failed to attend a certain number of sessions without a valid excuse would forfeit their senatorial privileges. This regulation not only served to bolster attendance but also reflected the growing centralization of power within the imperial structure. Compliance audits, therefore, became a critical component of the bureaucratic landscape. These audits were conducted periodically, often led by a designated praetor who would assess the accuracy of attendance logs and ensure adherence to the established regulations. The bureaucratic machinery surrounding attendance log maintenance became increasingly intricate, involving multiple layers of oversight and documentation. Supply chain and logistics. The logistics of maintaining attendance logs within the Roman Senate can be likened to a supply chain, albeit one that operates within the realm of bureaucratic record-keeping. The materials necessary for log maintenance, such as wax tablets, parchment, and ink, were procured through a complex network of suppliers. The Senate often relied on local artisans who specialized in the production of writing materials. These artisans would source raw materials, such as animal skins for parchment and plant-based inks, from various regions, creating a supply chain that was not only vital for the maintenance of attendance logs but also reflective of the economic realities of the time. The transportation of these materials to the Senate was another critical consideration. Given the geographical expanse of the Roman Empire, the logistics of moving writing supplies from provinces to the heart of governance in Rome required meticulous planning. The Roman road system, renowned for its engineering prowess, facilitated the movement of goods and materials. Couriers, often employed by the Senate, ensured that necessary supplies arrived promptly at the Senate's administrative offices. Once the materials reached the Senate, the process of creating and maintaining attendance logs involved a series of steps. A designated clerk would prepare the log by inscribing the names of senators on the log, often using a stylus for wax tablets or a quill for parchment. This meticulous process required not only attention to detail but also an understanding of the regulations governing attendance. Clerks had to be well versed in the expectations of the Senate regarding attendance and compliance, often requiring extensive training and oversight. Record-keeping methods. The methods employed in record-keeping for attendance logs evolved significantly over the centuries. Initially, attendance records were maintained using wax tablets, which allowed for easy alterations but posed challenges in terms of durability. The use of wax tablets persisted for many years, often accompanied by the practice of inscribing names in a cursory manner, which sometimes led to legibility issues. As the Roman Empire expanded and administrative demands increased, the transition to parchment became more prevalent. Parchment offered a more durable medium for record-keeping, allowing for more detailed inscriptions and a longer lifespan. The codex format, which involved folding sheets of parchment and binding them together, became the standard format for attendance logs by the late Republic and early Empire. This transition not only improved the organization of records but also allowed for easier referencing and retrieval. The introduction of ink, derived from various natural sources, further refined the record-keeping process. Ink allowed for clearer and more permanent inscriptions, reducing the ambiguity that sometimes arose from wax tablets. The use of ink also led to the development of more elaborate scripts, such as the Roman cursive, which became the preferred method for inscribing attendance logs. In conclusion, the tedious history surrounding the maintenance of the Roman Senate session attendance logs is a rich tapestry woven from regional variations, evolving practices over time, intricate bureaucratic regulations, logistical considerations, and sophisticated record-keeping methods. Each of these elements contributed to a framework that, while seemingly mundane, played a crucial role in the governance of one of history's most significant political institutions. The interplay of these factors illustrates the complexity of Roman administrative practices and underscores the importance of meticulous record-keeping in the realm of governance, an endeavor that remains strikingly relevant in contemporary bureaucratic systems. The dull history of Roman Senate session attendance log maintenance and compliance audits, Part 10. Regional variations and comparisons. The Roman Senate's approach to session attendance log maintenance was not uniform across the empire. Variations emerged primarily due to regional administrative practices, local governance styles, and the cultural importance placed on legislative participation. For instance, in the provinces of Gallia and Hispania, local governance often reflected a blend of Roman bureaucratic practices and indigenous customs, leading to a unique approach to attendance logging. In Gallia, the senatorial representation included a larger proportion of local leaders who had previously held positions in tribal councils. This blend resulted in the implementation of more informal attendance systems. Unlike their counterparts in the heart of Rome, who adhered strictly to the census-derived attendance logs, Gallian senators often employed a more communal method, wherein attendance could be signified through local symbols or tokens, which were then recorded by a designated scribe. This practice, while efficient in fostering local engagement, often led to discrepancies in the official attendance records, as the reliance on verbal affirmations and communal symbols sometimes resulted in inflated attendance figures. Conversely, in the eastern provinces, particularly in Asia Minor, the Senate's attendance protocols mirrored the meticulousness of Athenian practices. The local governance structures there were heavily influenced by Hellenistic traditions, which prioritized the documentation of political participation. As such, the attendance logs were not merely record-keeping tools but also served as historical documents that chronicled the legacy of local governance. In these regions, adherence to attendance log compliance audits was taken very seriously, and penalties for discrepancies were more frequently enforced. This strict enforcement often resulted in the appointment of additional clerical staff to manage the increased workload, thereby complicating the bureaucratic structure further. Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of attendance log maintenance in the Roman Senate can be delineated into several distinct phases, each characterized by varying degrees of bureaucratic complexity and legislative focus. Initially, during the early Republic, attendance logging was largely informal, relying on the presence of a few trusted scribes who recorded names on parchment or wax tablets. This rudimentary system was practical, albeit prone to human error, as the scribes often had to rely on memory and public acknowledgement for attendance verification. As the Republic transitioned into the imperial phase, particularly during the reign of Augustus, the Senate began to develop a more structured approach to attendance logging. This transition was marked by the introduction of standardized forms and the establishment of a dedicated office responsible for maintaining session records. The introduction of the Lex de Senatu, which mandated the preservation of attendance logs for a minimum of 10 years, signaled a significant shift towards a more bureaucratic and compliant administrative culture. This law also served to enhance the accountability of senators, as attendance records were now reviewed annually during compliance audits. The subsequent rise of the Dominate under emperors such as Diocletian and Constantine further transformed the protocols surrounding attendance log maintenance. The bureaucratic machinery of the Senate expanded dramatically, resulting in an increased number of clerks and aides tasked with the minutiae of record-keeping. This period saw the advent of more sophisticated methods of logging attendance, including the use of ink and standardized ink colors to differentiate between various types of sessions, ordinary, extraordinary, and emergency sessions. The logistics of managing these records became increasingly complex, leading to the development of policies regulating the storage and preservation of attendance logs, including guidelines on the environmental conditions required to maintain the integrity of the materials used. Bureaucratic regulations and laws. The regulatory framework surrounding attendance log maintenance evolved in response to the growing needs of the Senate and the demands of an expanding Roman Empire. Laws were instituted to address not only the accuracy of attendance records but also the ethical implications of falsifying such important documents. The Lex Cornelia, passed in the late Republic, established severe penalties for senators found guilty of tampering with attendance logs. This law underscored the importance of integrity in the legislative process and set a precedent for future regulations. In the imperial era, the legal framework governing attendance logs became even more intricate. The introduction of the Lex Julia de Attendance, which mandated that each senator submit a written declaration of their attendance status before each session, marked a significant development in compliance auditing practices. This law not only aimed to ensure accurate record-keeping but also served to enhance transparency in the Senate, as it required public acknowledgement of attendance status. Moreover, the bureaucratic regulations surrounding attendance logs were not limited to the Senate itself. Various provincial governors were also required to maintain records of local senatorial participation in regional assemblies. The establishment of the Office of Provincial Record Keeping in the early 2nd century AD standardized these practices across the empire, ensuring that attendance logs were uniformly maintained and subject to regular audits. The interconnectedness of these regulations across various levels of governance further exemplified the growing complexity of Roman bureaucratic operations. Supply chain and logistics. The logistics of maintaining attendance logs involved a surprisingly intricate supply chain, particularly as the empire expanded. The procurement of materials necessary for record keeping, such as parchment, ink, and writing instruments, required a well-coordinated supply chain that spanned vast distances. Parchment, for instance, was often sourced from regions known for their sheep and goats, such as Pergamum in Asia Minor, where the production of high-quality writing materials was a craft honed over centuries. The Senate's demand for parchment led to a burgeoning trade network that included merchants, shipowners, and transporters, all of whom played a role in ensuring that the necessary materials reached the heart of the empire. The logistics of ink production also presented challenges, as various dyes and pigments were needed to create the diverse array of inks used for different types of documentation. The Senate not only required black ink for formal records but also utilized red ink for urgent notices or amendments to existing records. This necessity spurred the development of specialized workshops throughout the empire where artisans meticulously crafted inks from natural materials, often relying on local resources. The complexity of these supply chains was compounded by the need to transport these materials safely to remote provincial areas, where attendance logs were also maintained. In addition to materials, the logistics involved in the actual maintenance of attendance logs were equally cumbersome. The transportation of records between the Senate House and provincial assemblies often required secure couriers, who were tasked with ensuring that sensitive documents were delivered without tampering or loss. The establishment of designated couriers, often chosen from the ranks of the military or trusted citizens, was a critical aspect of maintaining the integrity and confidentiality of attendance records. Record-keeping methods. The methods of record-keeping in the Roman Senate have undergone substantial transformations over the centuries, reflecting both technological advancements and shifts in bureaucratic practices. Initially, as previously noted, attendance logs were recorded on wax tablets, which allowed for easy erasure and modification. While this method was practical for the time, it posed challenges regarding the long-term preservation of historical records. As the demand for more permanent documentation grew, the transition to parchment became prevalent. The shift to parchment was not merely a change of material, it represented a broader evolution in the philosophy of record-keeping. Parchment allowed for more permanent and durable records, which could withstand the test of time. However, This transition also required the development of new methodologies for recording attendance. By the time of the late Republic, standardized forms had been established, which included columns for the senator's name, the date, and the purpose of their attendance. This structured approach enabled easier compliance audits and facilitated the identification of discrepancies in attendance data. Additionally, the advent of ink technology significantly improved the readability and permanence of attendance records. The use of different ink colors to indicate various types of sessions or to highlight notable absences became a common practice. The introduction of the quill, as opposed to the reed pen, further enhanced the ability of scribes to create clear and legible records. In the later stages of the Roman Empire, the advent of more sophisticated bureaucratic systems resulted in the establishment of dedicated record-keeping offices within the Senate itself. These offices employed a cadre of clerks trained specifically in the nuances of attendance log maintenance and compliance auditing. The clerks utilized systematic filing methods, organizing records both chronologically and thematically, which proved essential for efficient retrieval during compliance audits. As an additional aspect, the Roman Senate began to experiment with various methods of verifying attendance, including the use of seals and signatures. The introduction of personal seals, often crafted from wax and stamped onto attendance logs, provided a means of authentication that bolstered the integrity of the records. This practice not only protected against forgery but also added a layer of accountability, as senators were now personally responsible for the accuracy of their recorded attendance. In conclusion, the history of the Roman Senate session attendance log maintenance and compliance audits, though seemingly mundane, encapsulates a myriad of bureaucratic complexities. The regional variations, the evolution of practices over time, the intricate web of regulations and laws, the logistics of supply chains, and the diverse methods of record-keeping all contribute to an understanding of the Senate's operational framework. Each facet, while dull on the surface, reflects the empire's broader administrative evolution and the importance placed on accountability and governance in one of history's most significant political institutions. The history of the Roman Senate, particularly concerning the maintenance of session attendance logs and the subsequent compliance audits, is a topic that, while often overlooked, reveals significant insights into the administrative practices of one of history's most storied political bodies. The Roman Senate, existing for nearly a millennium, not only served as the backbone of Roman governance but also as a reflection of the societal norms and bureaucratic complexities of ancient Rome. This document aims to explore the intricacies of the Senate's attendance log maintenance and compliance audits through a detailed examination of minor historical figures, specific case studies, comparative analyses with other regions, archaeological findings, and plausible primary source quotations. #### minor historical figures and their roles. While figures such as Julius Caesar and Cicero often dominate discussions about the Roman Senate, it is essential to recognize the contributions of lesser-known senators and bureaucrats who played crucial roles in the day-to-day operations of the Senate, particularly in managing attendance records. Take, for instance, Lucius Furius Camillus, a minor senator during the late Republic. His contributions are often overshadowed by more prominent names, yet he was pivotal in instituting a more structured approach to attendance logging in 84 BCE. Historians record that Camillus proposed a standardized method for recording attendance, suggesting that each senator should sign a parchment scroll upon entering the Senate chamber. His initiative marked the first formalization of attendance records, which had previously been maintained in a more ad hoc manner. Another figure, Sextus Julius Frontinus, served as a praetor in the 1st century CE. His role in overseeing compliance audits of attendance records was crucial, especially during a time when political unrest and corruption were rampant. Frontinus is noted for his meticulous approach to auditing these records, ensuring that senators who were absent without valid reasons faced repercussions, thereby reinforcing the integrity of the Senate. His audits were so rigorous that they reportedly inspired envy among other political offices, leading to the phrase, "Sextus audits as the gods weigh souls," a nod to his thoroughness. Specific case studies with dates. To better understand the evolution of attendance log maintenance and compliance audits, we can examine specific case studies that illustrate the changing practices over time. One notable case occurred in 63 BCE, during the consulship of Cicero, when the Senate faced an unprecedented attendance crisis. Cicero, concerned about the lack of participation, initiated a comprehensive review of attendance logs, revealing that nearly one-third of senators had failed to attend the previous 5 sessions without proper justification. This prompted Cicero to implement a new policy requiring senators to provide a written explanation for their absences. This policy not only increased attendance rates but also fostered a culture of accountability. Cicero's efforts are documented in his correspondence with his friend Atticus, where he lamented the challenges of maintaining an engaged Senate but ultimately celebrated the increased attendance as a triumph of his consular duties. Another case study from 27 BCE under Emperor Augustus highlights the Senate's evolving approach to attendance compliance. Augustus, seeking to consolidate his power while maintaining the facade of a republic, introduced the Lex Julia de Repetundis, which included stipulations regarding attendance. Senators who were absent without due cause faced not only fines but also social ostracism, as their peers were encouraged to shun them at public events. This shift marked a significant transition from merely keeping logs to implementing punitive measures to ensure compliance. Comparative analysis with other regions. To fully appreciate the Roman approach to Senate attendance log maintenance, it is instructive to compare it with practices in other ancient civilizations. In ancient Athens, for instance, the assembly employed a system of registration known as democratia, which was somewhat informal compared to Roman practices. While citizens were required to attend assembly sessions, the attendance was less rigorously logged. This led to a greater degree of absenteeism and, consequently, a dilution of civic engagement. The Athenians relied on public shaming as a deterrent, which, while effective to some degree, lacked the formal structure seen in Roman practices. In contrast, the Persian Empire features a bureaucratic system that, while highly organized, did not prioritize attendance logging to the same extent as Rome. The Persian satraps, governors, were more concerned with maintaining loyalty and tribute from their regions than ensuring the participation of local leaders in governance. This lack of focus on attendance compliance allowed for a more flexible political environment, albeit one that could lead to significant disconnects between the ruling class and the governed. Archaeological findings and interpretations. Recent archaeological findings have shed light on the Roman Senate's attendance practices through the discovery of various inscriptions and tablets that reference attendance logs. For example, excavations at the Forum Romanum revealed fragments of a stone tablet inscribed with the names of senators and their attendance status, dated to 14 CE. This particular tablet, known as the senatorial attendance inscription, provides a rare glimpse into the meticulous nature of record-keeping in the Senate. Additionally, the discovery of a buried cache of wax tablets in Ostia has provided historians with first-hand evidence of how attendance was recorded. These tablets often contained lists of senators who attended specific sessions, accompanied by notes indicating the reasons for absences. One tablet, dated to the summer of 62 CE, lists senators absent due to illness or travel, highlighting the informal nature of excuses that were often accepted. This finding underscores the duality of the Senate's approach. While there were regulations in place, a certain level of flexibility existed, particularly in the realm of personal circumstances. Primary source quotations. To lend authenticity to this discourse, we may invent plausible primary source quotations that reflect the sentiments of senators regarding attendance and compliance. For instance, a fictional letter from Senator Aulus Vitellius in 50 BCE might read, "It is with great dismay that I reflect upon the absence of my fellow senators in recent sessions. The Senate, once a bastion of debate and discourse, finds itself increasingly hollow. I urge my colleagues to reconsider the weight of their duties, for attendance is not merely a matter of numbers, but a commitment to the Republic itself." In another imaginary excerpt from a speech delivered by Julius Caesar to the Senate in 44 BCE, he might have proclaimed, "As we gather in this esteemed chamber, let us remember that our presence here is not just a formality but a sacred duty. Attendance is the lifeblood of our democracy. To be absent is to forsake the very ideals for which we stand." These quotations, while invented, reflect the kind of rhetoric that would likely have been used to emphasize the importance of attendance in the Senate. Conclusion. In summation, the history of the Roman Senate's attendance log maintenance and compliance audits is a profound testament to the complexities of governance in ancient Rome. Through the exploration of minor historical figures, specific case studies, comparative regional analyses, archaeological discoveries, and invented primary source quotations, we gain a deeper understanding of how crucial attendance was to the functioning of the Senate. The detailed processes and regulations surrounding attendance not only underscore the administrative capabilities of the Roman state but also highlight the underlying values of accountability and civic responsibility that were central to Roman identity. This exhaustive exploration of the seemingly mundane yet deeply significant practices surrounding Senate attendance serves to illuminate the intricate tapestry of Roman political life. It is a narrative that, while perhaps dull to some, offers a rich and detailed account of how the Romans strove to uphold their ideals through rigorous administrative practices, thus ensuring the longevity of their political system for centuries to come. The dull history of Roman Senate session attendance log maintenance and compliance audits. The Roman Senate, a central institution in the governance of ancient Rome, operated under a framework that required meticulous record-keeping and adherence to procedural norms. Among the most mundane yet essential functions of the Senate was the maintenance of attendance logs, which documented the participation of senators in various sessions. This practice, although seemingly trivial, played a crucial role in the political landscape of the Roman Republic and Empire, influencing decisions on governance, policymaking, and even the selection of magistrates. To better understand the historical context of Senate attendance log maintenance and compliance audits, it is pertinent to consider the lesser-known figures who played pivotal roles in this bureaucratic process. One such figure is Gaius Marcius Rutilius, a senator during the late Republic. Rutilius was known for his unwavering commitment to the principles of Roman governance, particularly in the realm of record-keeping. He famously stated, "The strength of the Senate lies not merely in its power but in the clarity of its records." Rutilius's dedication prompted a series of reforms aimed at standardizing the attendance logs, ensuring that each senator's participation was accurately recorded to maintain transparency and accountability. Another noteworthy figure is Lucius Flavius, a lesser-known praetor who, in 63 BCE, initiated a compliance audit of the Senate's attendance records. This audit was prompted by growing concerns over absenteeism among senators, which had reached alarming levels during a period of political instability. Flavius's meticulous approach involved cross-referencing the attendance logs with the records of magistrates, a process that revealed significant discrepancies. His findings indicated that senators were frequently absent without valid reasons, leading to a decline in legislative productivity. Flavius's efforts culminated in a Senate decree mandating stricter attendance policies, which required senators to provide justifications for their absences, thus reinforcing the importance of compliance in the Senate's operations. Specific case studies illustrate the evolution of Senate attendance log maintenance practices over time. A notable instance occurred in 44 BCE, following the assassination of Julius Caesar. The political turmoil that ensued prompted a renewed emphasis on attendance tracking. Cicero, a prominent orator and statesman, delivered a speech in which he lamented the chaotic state of the Senate, stating, "In these trying times, let us not forget the importance of our presence, for it is in attendance that we find the strength of our collective voice." This sentiment led to the implementation of a more rigorous attendance log system, which was enforced by a designated officer known as the logarius. The logarius was responsible for ensuring that every senator's presence was duly noted, and any negligence in this area was met with reprimands and potential penalties. A comparative analysis of Senate attendance practices with other contemporary political institutions reveals both similarities and differences. For instance, the Athenian Assembly, a democratic body in ancient Greece, also maintained attendance records. However, the method of tracking participation differed significantly. Athenian citizens were required to physically present themselves to vote on issues, and attendance was often recorded by a show of hands. In contrast, Roman senators could be absent from sessions yet still wield considerable influence through proxies. This difference underscores the varying degrees of civic engagement and participation within these two prominent ancient democracies. Archaeological findings further illuminate the practices surrounding Senate attendance log maintenance. Excavations of the Curia, the Senate House, have uncovered remnants of wax tablets and styluses, suggesting that attendance was recorded on these materials before being transcribed into permanent records. The discovery of inscriptions detailing attendance logs in the ruins of Pompeii provides direct evidence of the Senate's commitment to meticulous documentation. One such inscription reads, "In the year of the consulship of Tiberius and Gaius, the following senators were present: Quintus Fabius, Marcus Tullius, and others." Such artifacts lend credence to the notion that the Romans placed significant value on record-keeping as a means of governance. Primary source quotations, albeit invented yet plausible, can further enrich our understanding of this topic. For example, a fictional letter attributed to a senator named Marcus Licinius might state, "As I reflect upon the attendance of my esteemed colleagues, I am reminded that our presence is not merely a duty but a testament to our commitment to the Republic." The logs serve as a chronicle of our dedication, and may they forever remain unblemished. Similarly, a fictitious commentary by a historian of the time, Tullius Varro, might assert, "The integrity of the Senate's operations relies heavily upon the unwavering vigilance of its members, for in attendance lies the essence of our deliberations." The role of compliance audits in the Senate's attendance log practices cannot be overstated. These audits were conducted periodically to ensure that the records were accurate and that senators adhered to the established attendance requirements. The process involved a thorough review of the attendance logs, comparisons with magistrate records, and interviews with senators regarding their absences. Failure to comply with attendance regulations could result in penalties, including fines or loss of political privileges. Such measures were instituted to uphold the Senate's integrity and to deter absenteeism, which could undermine the body's legislative effectiveness. In conclusion, the history of Roman Senate session attendance log maintenance and compliance audits, while seemingly dull, reveals a complex tapestry of governance that underscores the significance of record-keeping in ancient political institutions. Through the lens of minor historical figures, specific case studies, comparative analyses, archaeological findings, and plausible primary source quotations, we gain a deeper appreciation for the mundane yet essential practices that shaped the functioning of the Roman Senate. The meticulous maintenance of attendance logs and the enforcement of compliance audits served not only to hold senators accountable but also to ensure the continued stability and efficacy of one of history's most influential governing bodies. Thus, it is through these seemingly banal aspects of Roman governance that we can discern the foundations of political responsibility and civic duty that resonate throughout the annals of history. And so, dear listeners, we come to the end of our tranquil journey through the often overlooked corridors of history. We have traversed the rather unremarkable yet surprisingly significant narratives of the Roman Senate session attendance log maintenance and compliance audits. What may initially seem like a dull topic has revealed to us the intricate tapestry of governance, accountability, and the subtle machinations that have shaped civil order through the ages. In our exploration, we learned about the meticulous records kept by the Senate, the diligence required to ensure that every senator was present, and the weight of responsibility that rested on their shoulders. We uncovered how these logs, while seemingly mundane, played a crucial role in the establishment of accountability and transparency in governance. The compliance audits that followed were not merely administrative exercises, they were vital checks that ensured the integrity of one of history's most formidable political bodies. As we reflect on our journey, let us remember that even the most ordinary aspects of history can offer profound insights into the human experience. The Romans, with their logbooks and audits, remind us of our own responsibilities and the importance of being present in our lives and communities. They invite us to appreciate the quiet diligence that goes into the functioning of our own societies, much like the stillness of the night that envelopes us now. As you settle into your cozy haven, I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude for joining me on this soothing exploration. Your presence here makes the journey all the more meaningful, and I hope the stories we shared have calmed your mind, paving the way for a peaceful slumber. Should you wish to revisit our discussion, feel free to replay this video. The gentle cadence of history will always be here, waiting to lull you back into its embrace. So now, as the world outside grows quiet and the stars twinkle softly above, I wish you the sweetest dreams. May your mind drift gently on the waves of tranquility, free from the burdens of the day. Allow yourself to float into a realm where the echoes of the past blend seamlessly with the serenity of the present, guiding you into a restful night. Good night, dear friends. May your sleep be deep, your dreams be filled with comfort, and your heart be light. Until we meet again, rest easy and take care.